Bingo. Guys, I found a crazy method to farm wood. But before that, I need to clear out all these trees. So basically, I'm gonna plant them all in a row. It'll make chopping way easier. So sit back, do your thing, and relax while this video plays. And listen to some Reddit stories I found. Alright, let's start with the first one. This first story is titled, "My maid of honor accidentally sent a brutal voice note roasting my tacky wedding to the main bridal group chat. So I canceled her flight." The poster writes, "I am a 28-year-old female and I'm getting married next month. My fiance and I decided to have a small, intimate destination wedding in Maui, Hawaii. Because we know destination weddings are expensive for guests, we decided to be incredibly generous. We rented a massive, luxury 8-bedroom villa on the beach and told our entire bridal party that their accommodations for the week were 100% paid for. All they had to do was buy their flights. My maid of honor is my college roommate, Jessica, 28F. Jessica has always been a bit high maintenance, but I loved her, so I brushed it off. During the planning process, we had a group chat on iMessage with all 6 bridesmaids, plus me. It was mostly used for sending dress links and sharing excitement. About 2 weeks ago, I was sitting at my desk at work. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from the bridal group chat. I unlocked my phone. Jessica had sent a 45-second audio voice note to the group. I thought it was going to be a fun update about her dress alterations, so I put my AirPods in and hit play. It was not a fun update. Jessica was driving in her car and the audio started mid-sentence. She was clearly recording a voice note meant for her boyfriend or another friend. Her voice came through my AirPods, loud and clear. I mean, it's just so incredibly tacky. Who forces people to fly all the way to Hawaii just to stay in some cramped shared Airbnb? She's acting like she's doing us this massive favor by paying for it, but she's just being cheap because she can't afford a real resort block. I'm literally only going because I want the free beach vacation and the Instagram photos. The second this stupid wedding is over, I am slowly fading her out of my life. She is so annoying with her bridal aesthetic." The voice note ended. I sat at my desk, completely frozen. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I was going to pass out. My best friend, my maid of honor, trashing my wedding, calling me cheap after I spent $15,000 on a villa to house her for free, and openly admitting she was just using me for a vacation before dropping our friendship. I looked at the group chat. Because it was an iMessage group, I could see the little read receipts popping up. Read by Sarah. Read by Emily. Read by Chloe. Every single bridesmaid had just heard it. Suddenly, a typing bubble popped up from Jessica. Then it disappeared. Then it popped up again. She was aggressively trying to delete the message, but because some of the girls had older iPhones that hadn't updated to the new iOS, the unsend feature didn't work for everyone. The audio file was permanently in the chat. The silence in that group chat was deafening. No one said a word. 5 minutes later, my personal phone started ringing. It was Jessica. I declined it. She called again. I declined it. Quick pause here. The absolute, freezing, heart-stopping terror of sending a trash-talking text to the exact person you are trashing is unmatched. But a voice note? A voice note is a permanent, undeniable recording of your exact tone of voice and malice. You cannot claim you were hacked. You cannot claim it was a typo. She literally said she was going to use her for a free vacation and then drop her. I am vibrating with anger for the bride. Let's see how she handles this. My phone was blowing up with frantic, massive paragraph text from Jessica. OMG, babe. Please, that was a joke. I was doing a bit. I swear, I was quoting a movie. Please, pick up. I'm so sorry. I love you. I didn't reply to her. I took a deep breath, opened the main bridal group chat, and typed one single message. Me. Jessica, your free vacation has been canceled. You are no longer in the bridal party, and you are no longer invited to the wedding. Do not contact me again. Then I went into the group chat settings, swiped left on her name, and removed her from the chat. The other bridesmaids immediately started messaging me privately, absolutely horrified by what Jessica had said, offering me so much support and love. But it gets better. Jessica had already bought her non-refundable $800 round-trip flight to Maui. Because I had officially uninvited her and canceled her room in the villa, she had nowhere to stay. Hawaii is aggressively expensive, and she couldn't afford to book a resort for herself at the last minute. She ended up having to eat the $800 cost of the flight. She posted a massive, vague, passive-aggressive rant on her Instagram story about toxic friends who can't handle the truth, but because all the other bridesmaids knew exactly what happened, She just looked like an insane, bitter person. We went to Hawaii last week. The villa was gorgeous, the wedding was flawless, and the pictures were stunning. We drank champagne on the beach and didn't miss her for a single second. Always double check who you are sending your voice notes to. I am applauding. Your free vacation has been canceled. That is the most satisfying text message you could ever send. You cannot disrespect someone who is literally paying for the roof over your head. The fact that she tried to claim she was quoting a movie is the most pathetic, panicked excuse I have ever heard. She played a stupid game with her phone and she won an $800 non-refundable prize. Flawless execution by the bride. Alright, let's keep this momentum going with the next story. This one takes the wrong chat mistake to a corporate legal level. This story is titled, "My fiance meant to text his mistress about how much he hated our wedding. He accidentally sent it to the group chat with all of our wedding vendors." I am a 29-year-old female, and until 2 months ago, I was happily engaged to Mark, 31M. Mark and I had been together for 4 years. We were deep into wedding planning, and the stress was definitely getting to us, but I thought we were a solid team. Mark comes from a very wealthy family, and his parents were paying for a large portion of the wedding. Because of this, the wedding had ballooned into a massive 200-person, highly orchestrated country club event. To keep everything organized, our wedding planner had created a massive iMessage group chat. This chat included me, Mark, the wedding planner, the lead florist, the photographer, and the catering manager. It was strictly used for professional updates, like finalizing the timeline or confirming the linen colors. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in my office on a conference call. My phone buzzed on my desk. It was a text in the wedding vendor chat. I glanced down at the preview screen, expecting a question about the salmon appetizers. Instead, I saw a text from Mark. Mark: "I know, baby, it's an absolute nightmare. She is being such a controlling bridezilla about these stupid flowers. I am literally just going through the motions to keep my parents happy so I don't get cut out of the trust fund. Just hold on a few more months until the dust settles. I'll be at your apartment at 8 o'clock tonight. Wear that red thing. Miss you." I stopped breathing. I literally froze in my desk chair. I picked up my phone and opened the chat. I stared at the message. My brain was desperately trying to process it. "Baby? Wear that red thing?" He wasn't talking to me. He was talking about me. He had meant to send this to his side piece, but in his haste, he had clicked the most recently active group chat on his phone, which just so happened to be the chat with 5 professional wedding vendors. For about 60 seconds, there was absolute horrifying silence in the group chat. Then, the wedding planner, a sweet, incredibly professional woman named Claire, typed a message. "Claire, Mark, I believe you sent this to the wrong chat. I am so deeply sorry, Sarah." That message from Claire broke the spell. Mark realized what he had done. Suddenly, my phone started vibrating violently. Mark was calling me, call after call after call. I didn't answer. Then he started blowing up the group chat, frantically trying to spin it. Mark: "OMG guys, I am so sorry. My buddy took my phone and was playing a prank on me." Mark: "Sarah, please answer your phone. It's a joke from the guys at work." The catering manager, an older, no-nonsense guy, chimed in. Catering manager: "That doesn't sound like a joke, son. It sounds like you need to cancel the prime rib order." Oh my god, I am howling. The catering manager stepping in to deliver the absolute knockout punch. "Sounds like you need to cancel the prime rib order." That is cinema. The sheer, unadulterated humiliation of sending your cheating, gold-digging text not just to your fiancé, but to the people you're paying thousands of dollars to orchestrate your fake wedding. The "my buddy took my phone" excuse is literally the oldest, most pathetic lie in the book. Let's see how she destroys him. I finally found my fingers. I typed one single message into the vendor group chat. Me: "Claire, please freeze all vendor contracts immediately. We will be canceling the event. Mark, do not come home tonight. You can stay at the apartment with the girl in the red thing." I locked my phone, packed up my laptop, and left work early. I went straight to our shared apartment, packed 2 massive suitcases of my belongings, and drove to my parents' house. When I showed my dad the screenshot of the group chat, specifically the part where Mark admitted he was only marrying me to secure his trust fund, my dad went absolutely nuclear. He called Mark's father. Mark's parents are very traditional, high society people who despise public embarrassment. When they found out their son had not only been cheating, but had accidentally broadcasted his infidelity and his financial manipulation to a group of local, high-end business owners, they cut him off. They canceled all the remaining vendor checks. Because Mark's name was on the contracts, he was personally legally responsible for the thousands of dollars in non-refundable deposits and cancellation fees. The wedding planner, Claire, actually sent me a beautiful bouquet of flowers the next day with a note that said, "Dodged a bullet. Call me when you find the right guy." Mark tried to show up at my parents' house to beg for forgiveness, but my dad met him in the driveway and told him if he ever stepped foot on the property again, he would have him arrested for trespassing. Mark is now single, drowning in wedding cancellation debt, and his parents are forcing him to pay rent on his own apartment without the help of his trust fund. And all it took was one clumsy tap on an iPhone screen to ruin his entire life. A standing ovation for Claire, the wedding planner, and the catering manager. They understood the assignment. This is why you always double check the recipient name before you send something that can destroy your life. He thought he was a criminal mastermind, playing his fiancée and his parents for their money, and he got exposed by his own clumsy thumbs. Losing the fiancée, the wedding, and the trust fund in a single afternoon, that is instant karma at its finest. This next story is titled, "My Toxic Mother-in-Law Accidentally Texted Me Her Master Plan to Ruin My Thanksgiving Dinner, so I printed the text on a massive canvas for everyone to see." The poster writes, "I am a 32-year-old female, and I have been married to my husband, Dan, 34M, for 5 years. His mother, Susan, is a classic two-faced monster. To my husband's face, she's a sweet, doting mother. But the second he leaves the room, she makes passive-aggressive comments about my cooking, my house, and my career. Dan always tried to keep the peace, claiming that's just how she is." This year, for the first time ever, Dan and I were hosting the massive family Thanksgiving dinner at our new house. We invited about 20 extended family members, including Susan and Dan's sister, Karen, who is essentially Susan's evil sidekick. I spent weeks preparing. I bought a beautiful 20-pound turkey, planned the table settings, and was determined to prove Susan wrong about my hosting skills. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I was at the grocery store grabbing last-minute ingredients. My phone buzzed in my purse. It was a text from Susan. Now, Susan never texts me directly unless she's asking what Dan wants for his birthday. I opened the message, expecting a question about what time they should arrive on Thursday. Instead, I got a massive 3-paragraph text. "Susan, Karen, make sure you bring the emergency Tupperware in your trunk. I am not eating that girl's dry, tasteless turkey. She doesn't even know how to properly brine a bird. I already cooked a secret ham and 3 of our family's real side dishes. We will leave them in your car, and right before dinner, I'm going to casually bring them in and say, I accidentally made too much, so Dan actually gets a decent meal. I also bought that expensive red wine she hates, and I'm going to spill a tiny bit on her ugly white dining room rug just to see her freak out. Don't tell Dan. See you Thursday." I stopped my shopping cart in the middle of the produce aisle. I read the text 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. She hadn't texted Karen. She had texted me. She was actively plotting to bring a secret, backup Thanksgiving dinner to my house to humiliate my cooking in front of 20 people. And she was planning to intentionally vandalize my brand new white rug with red wine. My heart was pounding with pure rage. I didn't reply. I didn't call her. I took a screenshot of the text message. I immediately drove to a local printing shop. Quick pause. The sheer, unadulterated evil of this mother-in-law. Who plots to intentionally spill red wine on a brand new rug? That crosses the line from petty to literal property damage, and bringing a secret ham to upstage the turkey is so incredibly insulting. But the fact that she texted the exact person she was plotting against, that is the universe handing you the ultimate weapon. Let's see how she uses it. I walked into the print shop and paid an expedited rush fee. I had them blow up the screenshot of Susan's text message onto a massive 24 by 36 inch glossy poster board. The text was huge. It was unmissable. I brought it home and hid it in my closet. I showed Dan the text on my phone that night. He was completely horrified. He finally realized his mother wasn't just misunderstood. Ta was actively malicious. He told me he would handle it, but I told him no. I had a better plan. Thursday arrives. The family starts filing in around 2 p.m. Susan and Karen arrive, carrying absolutely nothing but their purses. Susan gives me a fake, sickly sweet hug and says, "Oh, the house smells interesting, dear. I hope you didn't overcook the bird." I just smiled warmly. "Oh, don't worry, Susan. Everything is perfectly prepared." At 4 p.m., I announced that it was time for appetizers and drinks in the formal dining room. Everyone gathered around the table. Sitting right in the center of the dining table, resting on a heavy wooden easel, was the 24 by 36 inch poster board. I had covered it with a beautiful silk cloth. "Before we eat," I said loudly, tapping my wine glass with a spoon, "I just wanted to share a beautiful message of family unity that Susan sent me earlier this week to commemorate our first time hosting." Susan looked confused. She smiled at the room, clearly thinking I was about to compliment her. I grabbed the corner of the silk cloth and whipped it off the easel. There it was, in massive black and white print, the exact screenshot of her text. You could read "secret ham," "tasteless turkey," and spill a tiny bit on her ugly white rug from across the room. The entire family leaned in to read it. The silence that fell over the room was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Dan's uncle read it out loud, his voice trailing off as he reached the part about vandalizing the rug. Everyone slowly turned to look at Susan. Susan's face turned the color of a fire engine. She looked like she was going to have a stroke. She started stammering, My phone was hacked. That's fake." "It's not fake, Mom," Dan said, stepping forward, looking completely disgusted. "You texted it to my wife instead of Karen. And Karen, go get the ham out of your trunk and take it home. Both of you." Karen started crying. Susan tried to grab the poster off the easel, but Dan blocked her. He told his mother and his sister to leave our house immediately and not to contact us for the rest of the year. They walked out the front door in total humiliation in front of the entire extended family. We had a fantastic Thanksgiving dinner. The turkey was perfectly juicy and my white rug remained completely spotless. I kept the poster and hung it in the garage as a trophy. I am standing up and applauding the poster board reveal. That is the most theatrical, magnificent, petty revenge I have ever heard in my life. You cannot claim you were hacked when your son literally kicks you out in front of the whole family. Unveiling her toxic behavior like a museum exhibit is just chef's kiss. She absolutely ruined her own Thanksgiving, and probably her relationship with her son because she didn't double check the recipient name. Flawless victory. This story is titled, "My Arrogant Boss Meant to Slack His Work Wife About Firing Me." He accidentally posted it in the company-wide #general channel. I am a 26-year-old software engineer, and for the last year, I worked at a rapidly growing tech startup. The pay was great, but the culture was incredibly toxic, largely due to our department director, Greg, 40s M. Greg was a massive bully. He played favorites, stole credit for successful code, and spent 90% of his day chatting with his work wife, the HR manager, Melissa. Greg hated me because I was the only engineer who would push back when he requested impossible deadlines. I documented everything in writing because I knew he was trying to build a fake paper trail to get rid of me. Last month, I had just finished a massive 2-week sprint to launch a new feature for our app. I was exhausted but proud of the work. It was a Friday afternoon, about 3 p.m. I was sitting at my desk, sipping a coffee, when a notification popped up on my screen. It was an alert from the company's Slack workspace, but it wasn't a direct message. It was a notification in the #general channel. For context, the #general channel includes all 150 employees in the company, from the interns all the way up to the CEO. It is strictly used for major company announcements, like holiday schedules or welcoming new hires. I clicked on the notification. The message was from Greg. Greg: "Hey Mel, the idiot finally pushed the code for the new feature. It actually works perfectly, so we don't need him anymore. Can you draft up the termination paperwork for Monday morning? Let's just say it's for culture fit so we don't have to pay out his unvested stock options. I already have my buddy from my old firm lined up to take his salary. Drinks at 5 to celebrate?" I stared at the screen. I literally rubbed my eyes. He hadn't sent a direct message to Melissa, the HR manager. He had typed it directly into the #general channel. 150 people were currently reading a message where a director admitted to using an employee to finish a project, planning to fire him on a bogus excuse to steal his stock options, and openly admitting to nepotism by hiring his friend to replace him. The Slack channel exploded. It wasn't just silence. You could actively see the typing indicators going crazy. First, a senior engineer replied in the thread, Greg, you posted this in general?" Then, the chief technology officer, Greg's boss, chimed in. "Greg, my office, now." Greg desperately tried to delete the message. You could see that this message was deleted notification pop up, but it was way too late. Dozens of people, including me, had already screenshotted it. I didn't even pack up my desk. I just took a screenshot, forwarded it to my personal email, and walked straight out the front doors of the building. I got in my car and went home. By 4:30 p.m., my personal phone rang. It was the CEO of the company. He was incredibly apologetic. He told me that Greg and Melissa, the HR manager who was clearly complicit in this scheme, had both been fired for cause immediately. He begged me not to sue the company for wrongful termination or workplace retaliation, acknowledging that the Slack message was a massive legal liability. I told the CEO I would agree not to sue under 3 conditions. 1, my stock options vested immediately at 100%. 2, I received 6 months of severance pay. And 3, I got a glowing letter of recommendation from the CTO himself. Because the CEO knew a lawyer would absolutely destroy the company in court with that screenshot, he agreed to all my terms on the spot. I received a massive payout, kept all my stock, and spent the next 3 months taking a luxurious, fully paid vacation before starting a much better job at a rival company. Greg is currently unemployed and blacklisted from most of the local tech industry because word travels fast. The hashtag general channel remains undefeated. Oh my goodness, the absolute corporate suicide of posting a literal conspiracy to commit fraud and wrongful termination into the company-wide chat. I am cackling. The panic he must have felt when he saw the CTO reply, "My office now," is a level of terror I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But the poster is a genius. Walking out of the building and securing 6 months of paid vacation and fully vested stock options without even hiring a lawyer? That is an elite level negotiation tactic. Never plot a corporate assassination on company Wi-Fi, Greg. This story is titled, "My mother-in-law meant to text her sister about running a secret DNA test on my newborn. She sent the results directly to me." The poster writes, "I am a 27-year-old female and I have been married to my husband, Dan, 29M, for 3 years. Dan's mother, Helen, has never liked me. She comes from old money and I grew up decidedly middle class. She has always subtly implied that I am a gold digger who trapped her son. Dan is amazing though and constantly defends me and shuts down her passive-aggressive behavior. 5 months ago, I gave birth to our first child, a beautiful baby boy. Dan was over the moon. Helen, however, was weirdly aloof. She would hold the baby, but she was constantly scrutinizing his features, saying things like, 'Well, he certainly doesn't have the family nose,' or 'I wonder where he gets those dark eyes from.' Both Dan and I have brown hair and brown eyes, so it was a ridiculous comment. Last Saturday, Dan had to go into the office for a few hours. I was exhausted, and Helen surprisingly offered to come over and watch the baby so I could go get a coffee, get my nails done, and have a few hours to myself. I hesitated, but I really needed a break, so I agreed. I was sitting in the salon chair, finally relaxing for the first time in months. My phone buzzed in my purse. It was a text from Helen. I assumed it was a picture of the baby or a question about where his bottles were. I opened the message. "Helen, Margaret, you owe me $50. The lab results just came back in my email. I honestly can't believe it, but he is actually Dan's biological son. The DNA is a 99.9% match. I was so incredibly sure she was sleeping around with that trainer at her gym. Oh well, I'm going to delete the PDF and throw away the swab wrappers before she gets home. Do not tell Dan I did this. He would absolutely disown me. Margaret is Helen's sister." I sat in the salon chair staring at my phone. The blood roaring in my ears was so loud I couldn't hear the music playing in the shop. My mother-in-law had waited until she was alone with my infant son, swabbed his cheek without my consent, mailed it to a private DNA testing facility, and placed a $50 bet with her sister on whether or not I was a cheating gold digger. And she had just texted the absolute, undeniable proof of her betrayal directly to my phone. I didn't reply. I didn't even wait for my nails to dry. I threw a $20 bill on the counter, ran to my car, and drove home like a maniac. I called Dan on the way and told him he needed to leave the office and get home right that second. I burst through my front door. Helen was sitting on the couch, holding my son, watching TV. I marched over, scooped my baby out of her arms, and backed away. Helen looked startled. "Oh, you're home early. Your nails aren't even done. Get out of my house, Helen," I said, my voice shaking with pure rage. "Excuse me?" she said, standing up, putting on her offended, aristocratic face. "I am doing you a favor, you ungrateful..." I held up my phone. I had the text message pulled up, zoomed in on the words swab results and do not tell Dan. "You sent it to me, Helen, not Margaret," I said. "You swabbed my child's DNA behind my back. Get out of my house before I call the police for trespassing." Her face completely crumbled. The arrogant facade vanished, replaced by pure, blinding panic. She realized exactly what she had done. She started stammering, reaching her hands out, saying it was just a medical precaution and that she loved us both. Right at that moment, Dan walked through the front door. I handed Dan my phone. He read the text. I have never seen my husband look so furious in my entire life. He didn't even yell. He looked at his mother with absolute disgust. "Give me your house key," Dan said quietly. Helen was sobbing hysterically, begging him to understand. Dan just repeated it. "Give me the key, Mom, and get out." She handed over the key and left, crying the entire way to her car. It has been 4 months. Dan completely cut her off. He blocked her number, and we did not invite her to our son's christening. She has been sending flying monkeys to tell us we are being too harsh over a misunderstanding, but Dan refuses to budge. She thought she was going to expose me and ruin my marriage. Instead, she accidentally hit send and nuked her entire relationship with her only son and her grandson. And it is entirely her own fault. I am literally standing up and applauding. The sheer, terrifying audacity to swab an infant's cheek behind the mother's back. Placing a $50 bet on the paternity of your own grandson? That is sociopathic. But the universe stepped in and guided her thumb to the wrong contact. The fact that the husband immediately demanded the house key and kicked her out without hesitation makes him an absolute top-tier partner. You do not mess with a mother and her baby. Helen got exactly what she deserved. Alright, let's bring it home with the final story of the video. This one is a corporate disaster that cost a boss everything. This one is titled, "My Greedy Boss Meant to Text His Partner About Illegally Stealing My $40,000 Commission Check. He accidentally sent it to me, so I took the client list and walked." I am a 30-year-old guy and I work in enterprise software sales. Our compensation structure is heavily commission-based. I worked for a mid-sized, privately owned tech firm run by the CEO, Brad, and his silent partner, Dave. Brad is notoriously cheap, always driving new luxury cars while complaining that the company budget is too tight for annual raises. For 8 months, I have been working my absolute hardest to close a massive, multi-million-dollar software licensing deal with a national hospital network. It was the biggest deal in our company's history. According to my signed employment contract, the commission on this deal was a flat 10%, meaning a $40,000 payout for me upon signing. On a Thursday afternoon, the hospital executives finally signed the contract. It was fully executed. I was ecstatic. I went out to dinner with my wife to celebrate, knowing that $40,000 was going to pay off our remaining student loans and fund our entire kitchen remodel. Later that night, around 10:30 p.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a text from Brad. I figured it was a late night congratulations message. I opened it. Brad. "Hey Dave, the hospital contract is officially signed and the deposit cleared. We are looking at a huge Q3. But listen, do not authorize Greg's $40,000 commission check on Friday. I'm not paying a 30-year-old kid 40 grand for sending a few emails. Let's just pull him into the office tomorrow morning and terminate him for poor culture fit. His contract says commissions aren't paid out if the employee is terminated before the end of the pay period. We keep the $40,000 and I can finally put the down payment on that lake house boat. See you at 8 a.m. I am Greg. I read the text 4 times. The words started to blur together. My boss was actively conspiring with his business partner to fire me without cause, less than 12 hours after I closed the biggest deal in company history, specifically to exploit a loophole in my contract and steal my $40,000 commission to buy a boat. And he had accidentally sent the entire criminal conspiracy directly to my personal cell phone. I didn't sleep a single minute that night. I didn't reply to the text. I went into absolute survival mode. At 2 a.m., I logged into my company laptop. Because I was the lead account executive, I had full administrative access to my client portfolio. I spent 4 hours downloading every single email, every signed contract, and every piece of communication I had ever had with the hospital executives. I also downloaded a full copy of my employment contract. Then I drafted an email. I didn't send it to Brad. I sent it directly to the chief operating officer of the hospital network, the very same executive who had just signed the multi-million-dollar deal with me. I attached a screenshot of Brad's text message. I wrote, "Dear hospital executive, it has been an absolute pleasure working with you these last 8 months to secure this partnership. Unfortunately, As you can see from the attached text message sent to me by mistake tonight, the CEO of this company operates with zero ethics or integrity and intends to terminate me in the morning to steal my commission. I cannot, in good conscience, allow a prestigious hospital network to entrust their data and multi-million-dollar budget to a company led by a man who openly commits wage theft. I will be resigning effective immediately. I hit send at 6 a.m. At 7:30 a.m., I drove to the office. I didn't go inside, I just parked in the lot and waited. At 8:05 a.m., Brad pulled up in his new Porsche. He walked into the building. At 8:15 a.m., my personal phone rang. It was Brad. I answered it and put it on speaker. "Greg!" Brad screamed into the phone, sounding completely unhinged. "What the hell did you do?" "The hospital just invoked their 24-hour emergency cancellation clause. They pulled the entire contract. They are threatening to report us to the Better Business Bureau for unethical practices. We just lost millions of dollars." I smiled. "That's weird, Brad," I said calmly. "I thought you said I was just a 30-year-old kid who sent a few emails. Looks like those emails were worth a few million bucks. By the way, my lawyer has a screenshot of your plan to commit wage theft. You'll be hearing from the Department of Labor regarding my $40,000 commission, since the contract was signed before I officially resigned just now. Good luck buying the boat." I hung up, blocked his number, and drove home. The fallout was catastrophic. Because the hospital network pulled out, Brad's company lost their primary source of projected revenue. Brad's silent partner, Dave, was so furious about the lost revenue and the massive legal liability that he sued Brad to dissolve the partnership. My lawyer took the case on contingency because Brad had stupidly put his entire intent to commit fraud and wage theft in writing. The company's legal counsel settled out of court almost immediately. They paid me my full $40,000 commission, plus an additional $20,000 in damages just to make the lawsuit go away. Brad's company filed for bankruptcy 8 months later. I got hired by a rival tech firm the very next week, and I used the settlement money to buy myself a brand new car. It runs perfectly, unlike Brad's non-existent boat. I am howling, the absolute cinematic perfection of this revenge. Firing the guy who literally just made you millions of dollars so you can steal his bonus for a boat? That is the peak of corporate greed. But forwarding the CEO's own text message directly to the client who just signed the contract? That is a nuclear bomb. The client pulling the deal immediately is the most satisfying thing I have ever heard. Brad lost millions of dollars, his business partner, his company, and he still had to pay the $40,000 commission. That is what you get for being a greedy, careless tyrant. Flawless execution by Greg. Alright, I guess that's it for today's video. I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, bye. And if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like. It genuinely makes me really happy. Alright, bye, peace.